In this investigation, you'll explore the life cycle of an insect called a darkling beetle. In order to do this, you'll have to raise your own colony of mealworms. Luckily, this is pretty easy. The materials you'll need are simple and inexpensive. First, you'll need some mealworms. You can buy these at most places that sell pet supplies. They're usually kept in small plastic tubs in a refrigerator, and you can buy 100 for less than $3. You'll also need a container to keep them in. You could buy something at the pet store, but you probably have something at home that will work just fine. An old takeout container from a restaurant works great. It should be plastic and have a tight-fitting lid. Mealworms, and the beetles they become as adults, both eat grains like wheat and oats. Rolled oats make a good food source for your colony. Avoid other breakfast cereals that usually have a lot of sugar and can attract other insects, like ants. Mealworms, like all living things, need water. However, you can easily take care of this by adding a slice of fruit, like an apple. The mealworms will eat the fruit and get all the water they need. Step 1. Make sure the container you will use is clean and dry. Take off the lid to prepare it separately. You'll want to poke some holes in it to allow for the flow of air. You can do this easily with a thumbtack, but be careful. Step 2. Besides being a source of food, the rolled oats will form bedding. This is where the mealworms can crawl around and hide. They usually try to avoid light. Just fill the bottom of the container to a depth of about 1 inch or about 2 centimeters. Step 3. Now add the source of water. Apples are great, but you can try other foods such as potatoes or carrots. You only need a slice. Keep an eye on it and change it out for a fresh slice if it becomes rotten or dried out. Step 4. Finally, you can add the mealworms. Gently empty the tub into the prepared container. The tub will also have its own bedding that can be added as well. Step 5. Now that the mealworms are safely in their new habitat, replace the lid. Make sure it fits tightly. Keep the container somewhere where you can check it frequently. The best location is somewhere warm that doesn't get too much light. Mealworms have mouth parts, of course, that's how they eat, but they can't bite you and they have no sting. Mealworms are pests when they eat stored grains, but unlike some other insects, they don't carry disease. You should feel perfectly safe handling these insects with your bare hands. If, however, you aren't comfortable touching them, you can use a tool, such as a plastic spoon, to move them around. No matter which you choose, you should treat the mealworms with care, as you would any living creature. Now that you've set up your mealworm colony, you can make observations over the next few days, weeks, and months. Of course, the first stage you'll see is the stage known as the larva. Although we call them mealworms, these larvae have legs. Look closely. You might want to use a hand lens. How many legs do you see? In the larval stage, the mealworms eat, and they grow a lot. As they grow, they molt. This means that their outer covering splits open and is left behind. We sometimes say that mealworms shed their skin, but this is actually their skeleton. Mealworms, like all insects, have their skeleton on the outside. We call this an exoskeleton. Many insects have a larval stage. What others can you think of? Keep watching your mealworm colony. In a few weeks, you should start to see something new. After 10 to 20 molts, the mealworm is no longer a larva, but a pupa. This stage looks like some kind of strange alien. The pupa has no mouth and doesn't eat. If the larva stage is all about eating and growing, the pupa stage is all about changing. What comes out of the pupa will look nothing like the larva. This stage is the same for many insects, including butterflies and moths. Have you seen the pupa stage of a butterfly or moth? What does that look like? What is it called? Keep an eye on those pupae. After 1 to 3 weeks, an adult will emerge from the pupa. If you are there to see this, you will notice that the adult starts out very white and quickly gets darker until it is a shiny black color. The adults live for 2 to 4 months, and during this time the females will lay eggs that will hatch after a few more weeks into new mealworm larvae. The eggs laid by the adult female beetles are very small. Also, they are sticky. They usually collect tiny bits of the bedding and are quite camouflaged. It is very difficult to see them, but you will know they're there when you start to see new, tiny larvae. What are the names of the 4 stages of the mealworm life cycle? What are the special characteristics of each stage? What body parts are present in each stage? What parts are missing? What are the behaviors? What changes do you see during each stage? How is the mealworm life cycle the same as the life cycles of other insects? How is it different? What about other animals? What about humans? What about plants? After making your observations and answering the questions, making a graphic organizer is another way to arrange your thoughts and show what you've learned about life cycles. You'll start with a large piece of paper. The bigger the better. You'll also need something to write and draw with. And now it's time to record what you've learned. A good place to start might be the names of the 4 stages of the mealworm life cycle. Next, add lines or arrows along with words to show how these ideas are related. Add extra words to describe everything you learned about the different ideas. You might want to try different colors to keep your graphic organizer organized. Adding labeled drawings is another good way to show what you've learned. Feel free to use all the paper to show everything you've learned about the mealworm life cycle. Mealworms are just one example of one kind of life cycle. Now you can make a graphic organizer to show what you know about the bigger idea of life cycles in general. You can keep making different graphic organizers and combining them to show the relationships between ideas. The possibilities are endless.